This is Center Stage, putting lawyers in the spotlight by highlighting attorneys and other industry experts to help take your law firm to the next level. Hey everyone, and welcome to Center Stage. I'm your host, John Henson, and this week we are kind of drilling down a little bit here, getting a little bit more specific than we normally do, and that's great. I love getting the really targeted insight and really helping everybody out any way we can. And so this week we are talking about some of the unique challenges that criminal defense attorneys specifically face with their marketing. And this week I am joined by one of the hardest working criminal defense attorneys that I know, Mr. Barry Wax. Barry, thank you so much for joining us this week.
My pleasure, John. Happy to be here.
Awesome. So before we jump in, tell everybody a little bit about yourself, where you're from, what's your background, and all that kind of good stuff.
Well, I was born and raised in Miami Beach, Florida, the fun and sun capital of the world. It's been a great place to grow up in. I'm in my 60s now, so I've lived here and I've seen Miami Beach go through a lot of different changes. But my law practice is located in Miami, Florida, but I have the good fortune of practicing all around the United States. Before I became an attorney, I was in the film business. I actually worked on movie sets. I had it in my mind that I was going to be a director. I went to film school. I got my undergraduate degree in film. And I was very, very successful. But I realized after working on movie sets for a while that my future was in the boardroom in the executive producing side of filmmaking. So I went back to law school with the idea that I'd learn everything in law school that I didn't learn as an undergrad, because I was basically an artist. And so I went to law school and discovered that I had a talent for trying cases. In fact, in my second year of law school, I was fortunate enough to win the trial competition, and that led to my third year internship with the Public Defender's Office, where I ended up trying 6 felony trials. One of them was a murder case, under the supervision, of course, of an experienced attorney. I was just an intern, and I got not guilties in all 6 trials. So they offered me a job, and I took it, and here I am 36 years later. Practicing in state and federal courts all around the country. In fact, I just finished a federal jury trial this past Tuesday night for a conspiracy to import cocaine and possession with intent to distribute cocaine. Got a very good verdict, I'm happy to say. And that's where I find myself today, primarily doing federal criminal practice, but also with a niche practice of representing professionals who have licensing issues, whether it's lawyers, doctors, realtors, because I represented so many licensed professionals in my career that their licenses were placed in jeopardy by virtue of criminal charges. And so I developed that practice on the side, and that's been a very, very good practice as well.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I've known you for probably close to 7 years at this point. I don't think I knew about your prior film experience. And it's funny. It's just like, I thought you were going to go down the path of like, I was going to be an entertainment lawyer. And then, right. But then I've always known you as the criminal defense attorney that you are. So, it's interesting, John, just to interject for a second, the things that I learned in film translated to the courtroom amazingly, because good trial lawyers tell stories. Good trial lawyers paint pictures. Good trial lawyers help juries put themselves actually in the event when it's happening, especially when I was doing death penalty work and violent crime. And it was like being a director and being an editor and being the actor. And it was very useful. So, just that little side note. Yeah. So let's talk about your marketing and how you market your firm, because I think, at least for me, who obviously I am not a lawyer, I think in general, people tend to not think about the fact that criminal defense attorneys can have a particular niche. Maybe people just think, well, criminal defense attorney, they just handle traffic tickets, they handle DUIs, they handle things when people get arrested and all that kind of stuff. But you have a bit of a different niche. So talk about that for a second, and then just some of the challenges that you faced in that niche in marketing your firm and attracting the right kinds of clients.
Absolutely. My practice has evolved over the years. As I said, I started as a public defender, and that was state court in the state of Florida. So when I went out into private practice and hung out my own shingle, the cases that I were getting were state court cases, it's street crime, possession, violent crime. I became known for trying very bad cases and not being afraid to go to trial. I love going to trial, quite frankly. It's marketing in that area is very difficult. You really can't market to criminals. There's no Criminals Monthly magazine or, Criminals Weekly. And you have to sort of find creative ways to market. And when I started practicing, there were only 5 law schools in the state of Florida. Now there's something like 14 of them. So the number of lawyers that are practicing has exploded, and the number of criminal defense lawyers commensurately has also increased. So there's a lot of competition out there. And back in the day, really, if you were a good lawyer and you did good work, people took notice and business came your way. And of course, the main way people marketed back then was Yellow Pages ads. But I didn't do that because I didn't want a high volume practice. That's also part of my niche. I keep my caseload down around 30, 35 cases so I can really give my clients the time and attention that they deserve. But with that, of course, comes higher fees. I'm not the type of lawyer who takes payment plans. I'm not the type of lawyer who takes a case for $1,500 and says you can give me $500 down and $500 a month. That's not who I am. So as my practice evolved to more serious, complex criminal cases, first starting with death penalty and then moving on to federal cases, money laundering, wire fraud, financial crimes, and things like that, I evolved in terms of my marketing. And as I said, you can't market to criminals. So what I learned was I needed to market to civil attorneys, the partners in civil law firms, the young associates or the senior associates who were just coming up. And those were the people I needed to contact because their client base was primarily executives, business owners, individuals who would have significant criminal exposure, and many of them who only are involved as, for instance, a witness. Take, for instance, a banker who's handling an account for someone who appears to have a corporation, a legitimate company that's selling goods or providing services. But what they don't know is that individual is laundering money. And they're taking the proceeds of illegal activity, either their own or other people's, and funneling it through their company. And ultimately, when the people who are committing the crimes are under investigation, those companies or corporate executives might get federal grand jury subpoenas that they have to respond to. So that client base, which I was very interested in, comes from the corporate counsels. And that was the beginning of how I began to market my criminal defense practice, in addition to, of course, staying in touch with former clients and reaching out to them regularly. So that's sort of the way that it evolved. And that dovetails into my networking and my, internet presence, my work I've done with Spotlight Branding for 7 years now. I think I may have even been one of the first clients of the company, and how successful that marketing mix has been for my practice.
Yeah. And so, to kind of hit on something that you said, it started, you figured out who your ideal clients were. And that's a very important first step. And I think it's a step that a lot of attorneys tend to skip over, because I think a lot of them start out like, well, my target audience is everybody. And that should not be the case. So you found your niche, and then you found out where they were. And as a criminal defense attorney, obviously people are not, if they're knowingly or unknowingly committing these crimes, they're not also thinking about researching which lawyer they're going to go ahead and hire first. They're typically going to figure out who their lawyer is going to be after they've been charged, alleged to do whatever it is that they've, getting charged with whatever people say they've done. So I know you specifically, you are a big networker, and we talk about how networking is super important. And it's one of the first things that you do in terms of your marketing foundation. So I know that was big for you in developing good referral relationships. I mean, you talked about how, your first sort of people that you kind of targeted were some of these other attorneys who would then have to refer these, cases over to you. So I know networking was a big part of that. What are some of the strategies that you have employed in your years of experience that have really worked for you, that have helped you build those relationships?
Like everything, it's evolved. As you market and as you network, you learn what works and what doesn't work for you. And I'm a very personable person.
Yeah.
I love people. I always have. I grew up in a restaurant. I worked my way through college waiting tables, and I've always enjoyed the social aspect of work. So for me, meeting with people is something not only that I enjoy, but I look forward to. So about 2013, I had the good fortune of enrolling in a program called How to Manage a Small Law Firm. And that really changed my entire practice. And one of the parts that How to Manage really emphasized was the networking. And we had the experience of hearing a speaker who I'm sure you and many of the people listening today may be familiar with, who's Bob Berg. And Bob Berg wrote a book called Endless Referrals. And he gave everybody a copy of the CD, or he gave us the book, I think, when he spoke, and I might have gotten the CD. And he had a program basically for how to generate networking referrals. And it was based solely on referral marketing. So let's say you would go, I was taught, and I did do this, I'd go to a networking event. And he said, if you walk out of a networking event with 20 business cards, you've failed. When you go to a networking event, you need to find 2 people in that room who are influencers, who are thought leaders. You can tell who they are just by looking at the room when you walk in and seeing how many people are crowded around somebody listening to them. And you go over to that group and you wait until you have an opening and you get an opportunity to talk to that person. And so when you talk with them, you obviously talk with them about themselves. People love talking about themselves, and not necessarily about law or whatever business they're in. They might be an insurance agent for that matter. But what you want to do is find out who they are. And you want to get information about them. Are you married? Does your wife work? Do you have kids? What are their interests? What are your interests? What do you like doing? And when you're done with that person, you get their business card. You don't have to give them yours. It's not an exchange. And then I would take that business card, and as soon as I could get a loan, I'd jot down on the back of it the things that I learned about the person. And now this is where you really take your networking to the next level. Most people would send an email. Emails are great, but they're not the same as a handwritten note. And a simple thing like sending a handwritten note to someone after you've met them in a networking event, saying it was great to meet you. Maybe we can get together in the near future. I really enjoyed hearing about your experiences at the golf tournament. Regards, Barry. And you send it to them. Now, you remember that Seinfeld episode years ago where they got the thank you card or the Christmas card or whatever it was. Right. And Jerry's whole thing was, I throw the card away after I read it. And Elaine says to Jerry, you can't do that. You've got to keep the card. You've got to keep it for a respectable period of time. 3 days is a respectable period of time. Well, it's true. People actually leave your thank you note on the desk. And I can tell you that I have received more calls thanking me for my thank you note.
Right.
And that opens up a dialogue. Yeah. And even if you don't get that call, you then follow up with a phone call several days later. And you set an appointment to meet with that person for a one-to-one in their office. And this is probably the most effective form of marketing that I've ever used because the relationship is there. And we know networking is all about relationships.
Yeah.
And you want to get into that person's network because when you're in their network, your network grows exponentially.
Right.
And, that really gave rise to a real growth in my practice. So I needed to take it to the next level after that. And that was pretty much where Spotlight came in.
Yeah.
I had a very stagnant website. I had had it for years, and I didn't really care about it. Social media wasn't really big then like it is now. But for me, my referral base was sending me quality clients. These lawyers or insurance agents or realtors or doctors I was meeting with would send me very, very good clients. And so what I wanted to do was have a presence on the web that people could go to, not by Googling me at random and finding me, but just to reinforce the referral.
Yeah.
And that's where it took it to the next level. So by the time the person called me and made an appointment, they had gotten the referral from a very influential person in their life. They had looked at me online and seen what I was and who I was and what I was about. And then they had talked to me on the phone sometimes for an hour and made an appointment. So my conversion rate was going up. People were showing up for appointments and retaining me. And that became very, very effective marketing for me. And then we get to the next level, which is networking groups.
Yeah.
And networking groups, I think, can serve a very good utility if it's the right networking group. Mm. And I think you understand what I mean by that.
Yeah.
I mean, I was in BNI for a few years.
Yeah.
BNI is a real commitment, which can be very hard for a trial lawyer. But I made the commitment, and I was one of the leaders in my BNI chapter. But it really wasn't getting me the types of referrals that I wanted, not the high-end complex criminal cases with my ideal clients. So I ended up finding a networking group that right now I've been in for about, 7 years, I think, called Florida Lawyers Network, which is experienced lawyers that it started out with 10 or more years of experience.
Yeah.
So you're getting in with a group of really established lawyers, and 3 lawyers maximum from every specialty. So 3 criminal defense, 3 family, 3 corporate. So you're expanding your network that way. And we only met once a month, but we would have lunches during what we call power lunches of small groups. And of course, your one-to-ones. And that even went so much farther, much farther, John. And so I've been talking for a while now about it, but that's sort of an overview.
Yeah.
And one thing I really want to touch on is, for me, a lawyer like me, I don't want SEO. I don't want people to tell me I'm going to get you on the first page of Google. I mean, sure, that's excellent. But for my type of practice, which, as you say, is a niche practice, I don't want people calling me who found me on the internet, whose only question about what lawyer they're going to hire is how much. I'm not a television set.
Yeah.
Like a DUI case is a great example. I'm very good at DUIs, at handling them. I don't make them a major focus of my practice. But for instance, my fees for DUI are significant. It's not $3,500. It's not $10,000. It's higher than that. And, if you're going to call me on the phone and ask me how much, I immediately know as soon as you ask me that question, I'm not the lawyer for you.
Right. Yeah. And that's one of the things that we try to tell people, is that's the thing that SEO companies aren't going to tell you. They're just going to say, hey, we'll get you on page 1 of Google. We'll send you all this website traffic. We'll send you these leads. We'll make your phone ring off the hook. But what they don't tell you is how much of that is actually people who are qualified to work with you. It's going to be the price shoppers. It's going to be people who may not even have an issue that you handle or even want to handle or anything like that. And so that's really good insight. And I'm glad that you brought that up. So,
well, John, it's obviously lawyers all experience the email bombardment, for lead generation and what have you. I've tried Avvo. Yeah. It's the same thing. The call quality is just not there. Legal Match. I talked to them and I said, take me off your list. Stop calling me because I'm not interested in misdemeanors and DUIs. That's not my practice. And it can be very frustrating being hounded by those companies because they just don't get it done for me.
Yeah, exactly. So we started with, you figured out who your audience is. You got into networking. You made those relationships. You built those relationships. You did the one-on-ones and all of that. I think the third part is, whether it's the referral relationships or the people who contact you, who were referred to you or however they found you, you get them into your marketing ecosystem. Your ongoing emails, the blog posts that you put out, the social media posts and all that. So when we look at marketing, there's typically two broader buckets. There's the SEO, cold lead gen side, and then there is the content-based, referral boosting, referral generating side of things. You took the content route, you took, nurturing the referral relationship route. How has that helped you? After you've kind of started that relationship, how has that ongoing content helped you in your marketing?
The single most valuable piece of marketing in my marketing mix is my monthly newsletter. Unquestionably, that message, that email that goes out every month to my email base that I've developed over the years keeps me top of mind. Whenever someone comes into my office for an interview and I spend time getting to know them before we talk about their case, invariably I have to ask them, do you have a prior criminal record? And more often than not, people say yes. And I say, okay, when were you arrested? Where were you arrested? What was the charge? And I ask them, who was your lawyer? Because obviously I want to know, why are you in my office if you've got a prior lawyer that did something for you? And I cannot begin to tell you how many times people say to me, I can't remember their name. Now that blows me away.
Yeah,
it just blows me away.
Right.
Because what it says to me is, first, you never established a relationship with your lawyer. And that lawyer has lost referral business from that individual.
Yeah.
And the person has forgotten them. Now, look, we're all guilty of it. I mean, I see emails in my mailbox every day from the listservs that I'm on. Hey, I'm looking for a patent attorney. Hey, I'm looking for a personal injury attorney. And just yesterday, there was one for a patent lawyer, and I couldn't remember who my patent lawyers were. So I had to go back to my database and find my patent lawyers, but I have a database.
Yeah.
By having my email newsletter sent out to my entire database every month, I stay top of mind.
Yeah.
They see an email from Barry Wax every month and they think, oh, hey, Barry sent another email. Whether they read it or don't read it, whether they click on the link and watch the video or don't click on the link and watch it, I don't mind. As long as they see that email, I stay top of mind. And in addition, I also get emails every month from people I haven't heard from saying, hey, Barry, I got your email. I love getting these emails every month. They're really great. And it's good to see you. Well, what does that do? That gives me the ability to pick up the phone and call them.
Yep.
And now I pick up the phone and call them and I say to them, hey, what's going on in your life? And sometimes they've got a problem, maybe not a criminal problem, but a problem that requires an attorney. And I can now refer them to my network and then create that relationship for another lawyer who says, hey, Barry's sending me business. And you know what's really crucial about my practice? I don't refer cases to other lawyers to get a referral fee. I don't want a referral fee. I don't want to cut into your profit. I don't want you to have to raise your fee so you can afford to give me a percentage of that case. And besides which, for making a phone call, we're really not allowed to take referral fees. You have to participate in the representation. So I'll refer a case to a lawyer and they say to me, hey, I'll send you a check. And I'll say, no, I don't want a check from you. And they're astonished.
Yeah.
I say, I'm sending a client to you because you're a good lawyer and you're going to take care of that client and I'm going to look good and I'm going to keep that person as a client. Because if I send a client to a lousy lawyer just to get a check, or someone who's got a high volume practice that isn't going to give them the same attorney-client experience that I give the client, I'm going to lose that client. And John, that goes back to the importance of the one-to-one meeting in the lawyer's office, not in a restaurant, not at a coffee shop, not in your office. You go to their office. And the reason you go to their office is you're going to send people to that office.
Yeah.
You need to see what's there. If you send someone to an office, if you refer someone to a lawyer and they get to an office and the office is chaotic and the assistants and the paralegals have papers piled up on their desk that the clients walk by and see, and the lawyer's phone keeps ringing while they're meeting with someone, I don't want to send someone to that office.
Yeah.
I want to send someone to an office where when the lawyer comes out to greet them in the waiting room, turns to the receptionist and says, Julie, hold my calls. That's creating, you see, we've created this whole universe of interlocking networking and marketing blends that are there for the benefit of the client.
Yeah.
And of course, the revenue generation for the firm.
Yeah. And it makes you look good because it shows that you care about that person enough to put them in the hands of someone who is also going to take care of them.
Exactly.
Yeah. You personally are not helping them solve whatever issue it is they have, but you care just enough to send them to someone who can help them and in a way that is in turn being helpful.
And there's a short-sightedness that lawyers have, especially when you're going through lean times and you have to make payroll or you've got to pay your rent or, your kid needs new shoes. I mean, you might take a case for less money than you normally would, or you might take a case that really isn't what you do. And that's a very short-sighted way of looking at things, because if you're going to keep, let's say you're a criminal defense lawyer and you're going to keep a personal injury case, you're cutting off your nose to spite your face. Send that to the personal injury lawyer. Yeah. Send it to them. Don't keep it yourself, because you're going to regret that you kept the case. Yeah. Believe me, in the long run, you're going to regret it, because you're not allowing yourself to expand your network. And if a personal injury lawyer finds out you're doing personal injury work, they're not going to be sending you criminal work. Simple as that.
Yeah. And one last point that I'll make, something that you said a little bit earlier, especially in just kind of the world that we live in now, where we're just so bombarded with all kinds of information. Mm-hmm. I mean, just, eat this, drink that, watch this, wear this new thing. Like there's so much stuff, we're scrolling on social media, we're watching Netflix, TV, listening to the radio, so many things going on. It's so easy to be forgotten. And it doesn't matter anymore how good of a job you do if you haven't, if you get someone through your, handle their case, send them on their way. If you're not staying in touch with them 6 months from now, they're not going to remember who you are. Even if you completely changed their life and saved them, they're getting back into their own world in their own little vacuum. And if you're not a part of that world and a part of that vacuum on a consistent basis, it's unfortunate, but you're going to be forgotten.
Yeah, John, I share my cell phone number with all of my clients. And, I explain to them, I go, look, don't call me on the weekends. Don't call me at night. Don't, if it's an emergency, you can call me anytime you want. But, don't call me on Saturday or Sunday and say, what's up with my case? It's rude. It's not,
right.
That's my free time also. And one of the things I always tell my clients, which is a very simple marketing trick that any lawyer can use, is everybody saves your contact in their cell phone now. Business cards, I mean, I haven't even had new business cards printed because I don't give them out anymore. It's just not something that happens.
Right.
But I always tell my clients or prospective clients, save me in your contacts as criminal defense attorney, because you're going to forget my name. There's going to come a time that you just won't be able to remember my name, but you'll remember criminal defense lawyer, and you can find me in your contacts by just searching criminal defense lawyer.
Yeah.
Same thing for any lawyer. And that's just a little trick that you can do that makes sure that those people don't forget who you are.
Yeah.
I will tell you that there were major challenges during COVID, from March 2020 to July of 2021, when the courts here in South Florida started reopening. Thank God for the newsletters and the blogs and the videos and the website, because it really substituted for the one-to-one meetings. Zoom was great, but it wasn't the same.
Yeah. And so yeah, I mean, all of that is just great insight. I know that you provide a lot of great advice and help to people out there. And I really like that, it's coming from you as an attorney, because I think other attorneys really value that insight from people who are in their field doing what they're doing every day. And, we hear a lot of times one of the big objections that we face, as a marketing company is like, well, my practice is super niche. I don't know how you guys can market to it, and you doing what you do, you're a great example of how we can help you and your business. And so, we really do appreciate that. I do have one final question for you before we get out of here. And that is, if you had one piece of advice for our lawyers out there, what would it be?
Get out there, get out in the community, get out of your own way. Stop making excuses for not going to networking events. Stop making excuses for not following up with people. If you really want to get motivated, sit down in your office with a legal pad, go through your database or just go through your phone contacts and make a list of people to call. It doesn't matter who they are. They don't have to be lawyers. They don't have to even be professionals. They can be former clients of yours. Some of the best referral sources you can find are people who are in the service industries. And make phone calls. Just call people and say hello. Don't try to troll for business. Just mind those relationships and business will come your way. I'm a firm believer in the universe, and I'm a firm believer in the law of attraction. If you put it out there, the universe brings it back to you. So if you go to a one-to-one meeting or you make a phone call to someone you haven't spoken to in a long time, you're going to start attracting other phone calls. And from my experience, every time I go to someone's office and have a one-to-one with them, they may not call me or have business for me, but my phone rings and something else comes in. If you don't make it happen, it's not going to happen. It's not going to fall in your lap. And it doesn't matter what your practice is, what your niche is, it's business. And all business can benefit from a good marketing strategy.
Awesome. Love it. Great insight. Really enjoyed this conversation. That's going to do it for us this week. Thank you all for continuing to rate and review us here on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, wherever you're listening to the show. We're obviously all over the place. Enjoy the feedback and all the suggestions that we've been getting. Continue to send those in as well. And that's going to do it. Barry, thank you so much for joining us this week.
You're welcome, John. My pleasure. Take care now.
All right. We'll see you. Thanks for listening. To learn more, go to spotlightbranding.com/centerstage.